Aloha and welcome to week 7 of CM 400C. I'm glad you're watching this video because it will help you think through and create your first draft of wireframes for your app idea that you will be working on for the remainder of the class. In today's lecture, we are going to look at my wireframes for one of my projects, Hawaii Dream. The purpose of this lecture is to walk you through the wireframing process and the level of detail your wireframes require to communicate your app idea and design before committing any visuals to your app. So let's go ahead and get started. The wireframe process begins by making sure you are able to answer these basic questions about your app idea. By now, you should have revised your assignment number 5 answers, so you've had some practice with answering these questions already. I went ahead and answered these questions for the Hawaii Dream app as another example of this thought process. What is the overall goal of the Hawaii Dream app? The overall goal of the app is to allow tourists visiting Hawaii to browse places of interest and save those places of interest into their itineraries all within the app. The core functions of the app include users can browse places of interest or places to visit in Hawaii. Users can build and save itineraries. Users can take a walking tour. Who is the target user? Our target users are visitors to Hawaii. We believe that our app functionalities would appeal to millennial travelers ages ranging from 18 to 34. Their educational backgrounds could range from high school graduates to college graduates. However, we are still exploring more questions to help us narrow down our target audience further. When and where will users engage with the app? We imagine our users will engage with the app a few days before traveling to Hawaii. Additionally, while in Hawaii, our users will engage on a daily basis, several times a day to make adjustments to their itinerary as they progress through their vacation. Moreover, users will most likely engage at the beginning, middle, and ending part of their days. Remember that when wireframing your app, your goal is to demonstrate different pathways that your user will advance through in the user experience or UX. So what are wireframes? Wireframing involves sketching every unique view in your app. So each view represents a screen. Views can include content and table views, text views, images, graphics, or other design features. You need to be able to answer the following questions when creating each of your wireframe screens. What's the most important action for the user on each screen? What UI elements, UI view or UI controls, do I need to use in my design for each screen? What design pattern will I use? What happens if the user clicks on this UI element? For example, what pathway is presented to the user, or what is the sequence of screens that you're going to be presenting in your wireframes? Remember that eliminating confusion leads to good user experience. For project number 2, you will have to create a user story for each of your screens in your app flows. A user story consists of one or more sentences in concise, plain language that captures a user's goal or task as part of his or her role in using your product. Please use this general user story pattern for each of your screens in your wireframe for project number 2. As a user, I want to, I would like to, so that I can, And what this means is each of your screens should be able to finish the statements for every user story pattern. All right, so we are just about to jump into the Hawaii Dream app wireframes and user stories. So let's start by looking at screen 1. There are a few things that I would like to point out on this screen before we discuss what's happening in screens 2 and 3. There are two types of ways to navigate through the Hawaii Dream app from screen 1. Via the collection view, so this is the collection view here, and I talked a little bit about that in the HIG content views. Users can scroll vertically, so they can scroll vertically through the collection view and click on these images here with labels, right? So the labels down here of different sections of interest. So this is another section of interest, and then there'll be another label on the bottom. Or via the tab bar at the bottom of the screen. Users can navigate to browse, right? So browse, itinerary, concierge, and tours. If your design incorporates different types of navigation, be sure that you can make it clear in your wireframes. In screen 1, I provided an orange arrow to make it clear that upon launch of the app, it opens up to the browse tab. So it defaults to the browse tab. I've also included a second arrow that if the user taps on an image within the collection view, right, within the collection view, he or she is led to screen 2, right? So if I tap here, morning grubbing coffee, I'm led to screen 2. So what's happening in screen 2? Notice that the user has selected the morning grub and coffee from the collection view. The app opens up to a table view screen, right? A table view screen, listing down coffee shops and other breakfast venues that are near the user. Notice that in the navigation bar, so this is the navigation bar up here, the title of the section of interest is identical. So morning grub and coffee is identical to this label in the collection view. In the navigation bar, the user has the option to go back to screen 1 via the back button, or view screen 3 or a map view via the map button. So if the user hits the map button here, they go into the map view. So here we are at screen 4, represents the location detail page. In my wireframe, screen 4 is accessed via screen 2. So let's go back to screen 2, right? So screen 4 is accessed via screen. So if I were to hit, that's morning glass. So if I were to click on this cell here, that brings me to the morning glass detail view. So the user selects the table view cell on the location detail page, in this case, screen 4, for that particular venue comes into view. Notice that if the user wants to access a map view with just the venue and his or her location, the user does so through pressing the directions. So if you press the directions here, you get into a map view just showing a few of the locations in this case. For example, this could be morning glass, and then this is the user's location. Please note that in screen 5, the user can also make a call by pressing the call button, go back to screen 4 via the tips, right? So I can make a call here. If I hit tips, I go back to this screen. Or I can get written directions by pressing the directions button here. Keep in mind that the whole point of presenting the user with a location detail page is to enable the user to complete a final task. In the case of my wireframe, the primary task that the user is able to complete in the detail view sequence, particularly from screen 5, is the ability to add a venue or place of interest to his or her itinerary. So right now I'm on the morning glass location detail page, and if I hit this add button here, it automatically opens up my itineraries, and then you select the day that you want to add morning glass to. So notice by pressing the plus or add button from screen 5, the user is led to screen 6. The other thing to note here is that the action of pressing the add button causes the tab bar, right? Causes the tab bar to change from the browse tab to the itinerary tab. So it's very clear where the user is now in the application. In screen 7, we see that the user is in today's itinerary,
right? So that's indicated by today being in the navigation bar. We see that the user has added 2 places to today's itinerary, so Morning Glass and Bishop Museum. If the user presses the route button, right, I press the route button, he or she is brought to a map page or view that allows the user to see the route for the day. The order of your route is determined by the placement of the venue in the table view in screen 7. So in this case, Morning Glass is location number 1, and then number 2 is Bishop Museum. If the user presses directions button in screen 8, so if I press the directions button in screen 8, a text view appears with a route direction in screen 9. To dismiss the directions view on screen 9, the user simply presses the close button. So if I want to dismiss this directions view, it's a text view, simply close the button, so select that button, and then the user is brought back to screen 8. Now we're going to move into the Concierge tab. So we're in the Concierge tab of the app. In screen 10, the user is able to use a slider, which if you recall is a control or UI element. So this is a slider here. The UI slider presents the user with a fun way of changing what venues appear in the table view, right? The table view right here, based on where the slider lands in relation to morning, day, and evening. So morning, day, and evening. As you can see, there is a route button that will take the user to a map page or view. I do not include wireframes for this sequence because they are identical to screens 8 and 9 if we go back to the previous slide. So it's going to be identical to these 2 screens. So that doesn't represent a unique app flow. So I don't need to map that out. Remember that when wireframing, your job is to show unique app flows. So what you would probably do here is just notate or explain to your client that refer back to screens 8 and 9 when the user presses the route button. In the next 2 wireframes, we move to the last tab, the Tours tab. So the Tours tab right here. The plan for this part of the app is to have 3 self-guided tours of places that visitors visit frequently. When the user selects the Tours tab, screen 11 comes into view. The user has 3 tours to choose from: Waikiki, Kaka'ako, and Diamond Head. In this wireframe sequence, the user has selected Waikiki, and screen 12 comes into view. Screen 12 is a map page or map view, so looks very familiar. The user can see his or her position in relation to the 5 sites on the Waikiki walking tour. The user stays on this view, making his or her way from site to site. So what happens is, as the user is walking and using this map view, their location will slowly get closer to site 1, and then they move on to site 2. So they'll actually see their location live. Notice that in screen 13, the user's location is near location 1. So we kind of call this like geofencing in programming terms. As the user approaches within a set radius of the site, which is programmed by the developer, an alert comes up. The alert view indicates to the user that he or she has reached site 1 and allows the user to choose between listening to an audio about the site. Notice that in my wireframe, I provide the user with 2 choices, yes and no. However, I've made one mistake here. In an alert, you don't want to give the user a choice between yes and no, if you recall from the Higg lectures. A better choice of words would be okay or cancel, so I probably put okay here and cancel there. Notice that in this sequence, the user selects yes, and screen 14 comes into view. If the user presses yes or okay, it's probably the best word to use, it opens up screen 14. In screen 14, you can see that the user has options to pan through, right? To pan through a series of photos about the site and read text while also listening to the audio. So these are the preliminary wireframes and user stories that my co-developer and I came up with and that we're developing from. As we continue on with our development of the app, some of these wireframes will surely change, or we will come up with more to represent unique app flows as we move through our project.
Okay, so what should you do after you've created the first draft of your wireframes or every draft of your wireframes? You need to use this wireframes checklist to review and make sure that you're able to check off everything on this checklist before you submit. It is imperative that you understand the wireframing process in order to create your visual app design prototype in the final project for this course. So on the checklist, you need to be able to answer this question. My wireframes support the overall goal of your app idea. My two unique app flows demonstrate the screen sequence that outlines two distinct app functionalities of my app idea. So remember that you guys are supposed to be answering what are the main functions of your app, and your wireframes need to support the app functions of your app. Each screen includes proper usage and placement of UI elements so that the user knows what to do on each screen. So remember, in the human interface guidelines, there are specific usages and placement of UI elements on the screen, and you need to make sure that you understand that process. My wireframes include common UI design patterns. So I just want to reiterate that you're not making up UI design patterns. You are going to be following industry standard conventional UI design patterns when you're wireframing. My wireframes provide a clear way for users to navigate to and from different parts of the app. So you also need to build in a way for users to get to and from different areas of your app. So you need to build that in, whether you're going to use a hamburger menu, tab bar controller. What are you going to use to help users navigate through your application? In other words, if I'm on one screen, how do I get back to the previous screen? Is there a way to go back? You always need to give your users an option to go back. Each screen has an accompanying user story to explain user interaction on each screen. You need to make sure that each screen in your wireframes has an accompanying user story so that we can clearly understand what your wireframe designs are trying to communicate. If you have any questions or comments regarding this lecture and how to sort of start off or kick off the wireframing process, please contact me as soon as possible. Your wireframe should be taking you some time to do, and I am more than happy to help with that process. Have a great week and aloha.